What is going on, everybody? Welcome to 4 o'clock on a Tuesday. That means it's the Just Gonna Say It podcast. I hope everybody's having a fantastic week so far. I am. Got a lot of work done. We made a bunch of pickups, did a bunch of stuff, so that's pretty cool. So you should be getting stuff in the mail if you have ordered stuff from me. I hope everybody that has made it today has been able to watch the video that came out yesterday. Apparently that one was pretty popular. And so, yeah, a couple things before we get started. We're going to talk about what it means for a made in the USA product. I'm going to tell you why we're talking about that. It's 4th of July week, so there's a bunch of channels in all industries, pocket knives and all kinds of other, like this is the best made in America stuff, whatever. So it made me look at what I'm doing. So we'll get into why in a minute. We'll get into why we're talking about this in a minute. Before we get started, I want to let everybody know that this is ad-free. So if you want to support the channel, you can ask a question. You can ask anything you want. You can also use a super chat to support the channel. That's cool too. Or you can just go to DylanTalksTone.com and buy a pickup. So that's pretty cool too. Right down here also is our Patreon. We do a monthly hangout. And actually, all Patreon and YouTube members, so the little YouTube join button and the little Patreon join button, if you use either of those and you are a member, you automatically get 10% off to everything that we make. Okay. So all the pickups that we make. So that pays for itself pretty quick, actually. So there is that. We have, like I said, a couple new videos you'll dig. We've got some new stuff coming out next week. We've also got some new stuff in the pickup vault at DylanTalksTone.com. So you definitely want to check that out. And right off the get, I want to let everybody know that we are not going to have a Thursday night live stream. It is 4th of July. I am going to be visiting some family, and so, or spending some time with some family anyway, that I don't often get to see. So we're gonna take Thursday night off. We never ever do that, but it's just kind of the way it is this week. So I just want everybody to know that we will be back to our regularly scheduled program next week. Okay, so made in the USA. What does it mean? Obviously, it sounds like what it says, but there's a lot to it. And so obviously we should get this out of the way. As you are well aware, I am not a lawyer. I'm just a guy with a camera, and I'm somebody who makes parts for guitars. That's what I do. So I was looking at all these other videos. People are making videos about, mostly like American made knives and various things like that. I was not even in the guitar space really. But I was like, what? I don't put made in the United States on anything. And I knew I was right about this, but I wasn't sure. So I wanted to dive into it a little bit more. And here's what I'm going to tell you off the get. There are very few, if any, pickup builders that should be putting made in the USA on anything. Of course, I'm not a lawyer, and if somebody else has it on their website, that's not my responsibility. I'm not, throwing shade on anything, but as we get through this stuff, it's very interesting. This is not American stuff is better than any other stuff. This is not one of those conversations. There are amazing craftsmen all over the world. However, because it was on my mind and I was doing some research and some education, I wanted to share it with you. Obviously, it's not a guarantee of quality that stuff is made in the United States, and a lot of folks that don't live in this country don't even care. So it's not about that. It's just about, I was thinking about it, and I wanted to share some information with you that is thought-provoking, and also in the spirit of like consumer education. Okay. Now, I'm sure there are people that know more than this about me, more than me about this out there, but I just wanted to share what I know. I think it's very, very interesting. So first of all, United States products, not every United States product has to say made in the USA on it. It's actually a choice. You don't have to put it on there. There are a few products you have to. That would be vehicles, so autos, textiles, wool, and fur. You have to put that you are made in the United States if the stuff is made in the United States. And there's a lot of regulation about where something is made and how it comes into the country. So if we've got stuff that's being imported, there are certain rules about, does it say made in China? Does it say made in Japan? Does it say made in Germany on it? There's a bunch of rules about that. And I don't know what they are for all products because it's very, the book on that's pretty thick. Okay. This involves us as guitar players though, because we're going to get into percentages of stuff and it's very interesting. The other thing that's important is that if you are exporting a product out of the country, you might want to do research on where you're sending stuff because you might have to disclose where it's made from there, which could get a little tricky. It's really interesting. This is really interesting stuff. And you might be completely bored out of your mind by this. But like I said, as consumers who a lot of folks care where their stuff is made, that could be for humanitarian reasons. That could be for political reasons. That could be for because sometimes it does give you a general idea, not necessarily of quality, but at least it can give you sometimes a general idea of that, depending on what the product is. So, when we're, and the thing is when you have a guitar, for example, or you have parts in a guitar, I like to know where the stuff comes from. Not because I necessarily care what country it comes from, as much as I like to support people that I know as much as possible. So like, I will buy something from somebody as long as they're reliable, from a small business as much as I can. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be a United States small business. Of course, I'll buy pocket knives and whatever else, or even guitar parts from something made somewhere else in the world, as long as I know that I'm supporting somebody. I think that's really, really cool. And so origin of product does, to me, it matters to me. Like where it comes from, it matters to me. And if I can have a connection with it, for me, I don't know about you, but it helps me connect with the instrument more. And when we're talking about playing guitar and stuff, I think it just helps with connection to the instrument. If you have guitar questions or anything, put it in there. Types of wood can be a challenge to cross borders. Absolutely. And so this is another thing. So we were just talking last week. In fact, somebody challenged me on it in the comment section on a video saying, well, if you're saying that stability of wood matters in a guitar, then that blows up your whole tone wood argument. Well, not really. Basically, all we're saying with the stability of wood thing is, if you don't spend a lot on wood, there's a good possibility, A, it came from somewhere sketchy, because that does happen. As in not legally or, harvested properly, number one. Or number two, the treatment of the wood pre-guitar construction can have a long-term effect on the quality of the instrument. So understanding where stuff comes from is important. And understanding that treatment regimen for that, that wood regimen for that wood matters. So origin, in my opinion, matters, because I want to know, am I going to have trouble with this in the future? Is there a guitar that you've had that's been incredibly unstable? Chances are it's because of the origin or the construction method. Then you start to look into the origin of where it came from, i.e. either the country or the design ethos of the guitar or the company practices of the guitar, or etc. And you start to be able to narrow down on those things. So I think it's really important. Let's see. Somebody was just talking about, I just saw here, you must be talking about GravTech. Designed and engineered in Canada, manufactured in Korea, assuming South. Yeah, I think so. When we start talking about made in the United States, especially, this applies to every product that is sold. Every product. If you say it's made in the United States, it has to be true. The Federal Trade Commission will come down on you if this is not true. It could actually even be implied. So if I were to put American quality on my box of pickups, then that has to be a made in the United States product. If I put a flag on my product. Now, this is weird because you can buy a flag that's made in China. So I don't know the particulars of this. All I know is if I make a product and I put an American flag on it, that implies that it's made in the United States. Therefore, the product needs to be made in the United States. I did not know that, which is kind of funny because you can buy a flag that's made in China. It's sort of weird. If you put a map symbol of the United States on the product, have you ever seen like steak or whatever, and it'll have like a little United States symbol on there? If you imply that it came from the United States, then it has to have come from the United States. I did not know that. So we don't have any of that stuff on our boxes. And I'm going to tell you why in a few minutes. And it's very interesting. So here's a weird one. The brand name can have US in it. So like US Air, for example. If I were to say US pickups, I could put that on there. As long as it didn't say American made pickups. If you imply that the pickup is made in the United States or the product is made in the United States, you can't put that on there. But if you say US guitars, US pickups, US pocket knives, and it's not made in the United States, you can do that if it's in the company name, as long as it doesn't say American made or something. Really weird. Super, super, super weird. If a certain product line in your company is made in a different country or does not fall, I should more accurately say, if you have a certain line that's made in your by your company that's not made in the United States, you cannot say all American made. Immediately we think of Fender and Gibson with their Squier and their Epiphone brands, but this is why. And I've talked about this many times, and people do not believe me. They jump through the comment section about this with me, but they do not own those companies. So they kind of own them, but they're under their control, but they're not the same company. Fender Japan's not the same company as Fender America. Squier is not the same company as Fender because otherwise they would not be able to say an American-made product. Gibson, same thing. They are different entities completely because otherwise they wouldn't say all American-made product. PRS, I don't know about that because I'm not sure. I guess they're made at Cortec, but I don't know how that works. All I know is when you see that, there is some separation, okay? And I know a lot of people are like, well, Squier is owned by Fender. Well, sort of, but not really. And when we start talking about design of pickups, or design of guitars, the designs are Fender, but the guitars are made entirely independently. We've talked about material selection in the past and those sorts of things. Super interesting. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because it does affect what we know of the guitar. Fender, in the real grand scheme of things, doesn't know what's going to go into a Squier. All they do is they say, I want this Squier to be $500. And we want it to look like this, and we want it to be 50s. And this is the design. The wood choice, the pickup choice, where the machines come from, where the tuners come from, all that stuff, they don't really have any control over. They just have to hit a price point. So, and I don't think a lot of people really realize that, and they really buck against that. But that's not really true. It's all just kind of built to a bid, if that makes sense. And that's where that kind of stuff does affect us. Separate legal entities, I'd love to see their transfer price model for intercompany sales. So that's an interesting one because they actually have to purchase. A couple of things I do know about this. They have to purchase inventory. So Fender has to purchase inventory from Squier. Okay. Do you remember when 300 people got laid off by Fender? This is because they had already purchased a bunch of inventory, and they have a deal with their bank where the proportion of payroll cannot be above a certain proportion of how much money they have in inventory. There's some sort of proportion that has to stay there. I don't know how it works, but this is big money stuff. And so they had way too much employees for the amount of inventory that they had, but that proportion was off. And so they had to lay a bunch of people off. But because they had to buy that inventory and they'd already purchased it, they also purchased factory space and factory runtime. All those things are purchased. So it's an interesting deal. And they're intercompany licensing agreements. Yeah, all that stuff, it's a bunch of legal mumbo jumbo, right? And what's interesting about it is we as guitar players a lot of times will complain about how much something costs or the difference, why is a Squier why can it be made for a couple $100 versus a Strat for whatever. These are all unseen and, costs that we don't see. There's just things we don't, we think of this piece of wood costs this much and this tuner costs this much, therefore the guitar should cost this much. But that's just not how it works when you get that big. All these things are thought about. I was just talking to my buddy the other day, my wood buddy. Everybody accuses me of not knowing this guy. Anyway, he called me the other day and he said he was going to, I want to say Fiji with Martin so that they can do some stuff with some wood. Super interesting stuff. So there's costs all involved in that. We're going to go buy a sawmill in a country so that we can get wood. I mean, it's crazy. Stuff is crazy. The costs involved are crazy. Yeah. Squiers are built by independent manufacturers. Yeah, so they have Fender uses, I believe the last time I heard a number, this was about a year ago, 24 different factories in the Far East that manufacture amps, guitars, all the stuff. So I think it's 22, 24, something like that. So yeah, aren't all these complicated laws the reason Fenders say Corona, California instead of USA now? So I don't know the 100% particulars on this, but what I do know is there is a large percentage, we'll get into percentages here in a minute, but there's a large percentage of a Fender Stratocaster that comes from Mexico now. Well, let's just talk about that. So the definition on whether something can say made in the United States on it, and this is where Fender had to change this up, is all significant parts and processing must be of U.S. origin. None or negligible amount of parts can be of U.S. origin, including processing. So there's a bit of a gray area here, but if a lot of the wood comes from and is processed in Mexico and then brought up to the United States, they may have had an issue with the FTC and have had to change that. Does the wiring in the Epiphone Wildcat capacitance cause a noticeable drop in treble, or is it their P90s? Their P90s kind of suck, actually. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. Their P90s kind of suck. That's pretty much what it is. So yeah. So, I think there's a lot of parts that don't come from the United States in a Strat now, and a lot of processes. It kind of makes sense too, because they're, honestly, they're using the same wood. I do know that for a lot of stuff. And, the processes are just a few miles apart, really, which is interesting. So, that's kind of a thing. So here's, to me, where I don't feel comfortable putting made in the USA on my pickups. Obviously, we make them in the USA, right? So let's talk about origin of parts. So, because of where the origin of parts for pickups come from, I would be very careful as any pickup builder, not just me, any pickup builder in the United States saying made in the United States on any pickups. Here's why. In all significant parts and processing, okay? So what is the significant parts of a Strat pickup, for example? We've got the flat work, which is paper. That comes from the United States. I buy that. It comes from somewhere up by Chicago. Okay, so I get that in big sheets, and we laser cut that here. So the process and the part is made in the United States, right? But basically everything else, the wire, the hookup wire is also made in the United States. But everything else is not. And the principal parts of the pickup are not made here. So the copper wire and the magnets, which are the things that make it go, are not made in the United States. And there's nothing I can do about it. Our magnets come from China, but everybody's magnets come from China. There's nobody building any kind of volume. Now there are, some wacky little places that are selling really expensive pickups that are getting magnets from. I guess there's a place in Germany you can get magnets from, but they're really expensive. For a while you could get magnets in the United States out of Texas, but it would make a pickup, like a single coil pickup, cost like $300. It was really expensive. So the market has to bear what it has to bear. You're not willing to spend $300 for a Strat pickup just to say it was made in the United States. I know you're not, because I know you're not. As principled as you want to be about that, I know you're not. So that's the thing. So now here we are with magnets that have to come from overseas and coil wire that has to come from overseas, which is kind of bonkers. You can say hand wound in Georgia, USA. So it's funny that you say that, because that is why on our newer merch, we started putting, and you'll see it on some of our hats, like with the V-Twin logo and because a lot of our stuff is surrounding like motorsports and stuff. So on a lot of our new merch, you'll see established 2013, Augusta, Georgia, because we figured that would be the way to tell everybody where we make this stuff, because it does happen here. Like and this is a hard one too, because so the magnets and the wire, the coil wire, doesn't come from the United States. A lot of other stuff does. But all the processes, right? Like we even make our own flat work here now. I don't have to order flat work from somewhere else because we have a laser now. So, the majority of the processes come here. Could I get away with saying made in the United States? Yes, I could, but I would rather be transparent about it, because I don't think I could actually, especially Strat and Tele, precision base, anything with single coil magnets. And humbuckers are tough because the bobbins. Okay, so some of the bobbins come from overseas. Some of the bobbins come from the United States. But here's the problem. Because I have the majority of my products. Well, let's say we sell, I know what I was going to say. It falls under some products are made in the United States and some products aren't. Now you have a problem. It's really interesting stuff. What about saying something is hand wound or hand assembled in the USA? You can say that, but here's the thing. If I say that, then people will be like, well, where are you getting your stuff? You're probably just using Chinese junk in there. So I would much rather be super transparent about it. Because I think it's more important, in my opinion. This is just my opinion. This has nothing to do with anything else. My personal values are, I would rather be transparent about this than make it sound like something it's not. I don't want to do that, And if you don't want to buy from me because my magnets come from China, well, then you need to stop buying pickups anyways, because that's where they all come from. That being said, who do you want to support, right? It's also why, like Duncan Designed says Duncan Designed on it, because they're not Seymour Duncans. They come from another country. And their website says handmade in California, I think. Gibson used those expensive magnets made in Texas, the limited edition. Yeah, they'd be super expensive. Ooh, the Fender Bassman Tone Master is on the webs. Oh my goodness, that's so sick. I don't need another amp though. I just got my Kemper and I really, really like it. Yeah, so this is some interesting stuff. And like I said, does it matter to most people? Maybe not. Does it matter? Maybe not. But what I think about from the consumer side, now as a consumer, if you are a person who cares about this stuff, you might not care where the stuff is made. You might not care. You might buy something from made in anywhere in the world, and it's totally fine, right? Like you might not care. And I'm not judging anybody for thinking a certain way. I don't think there's a right or wrong to this. You can feel how you want to feel about it. But where my perspective is how honest is the company that's making the stuff. That's what I look at. I want to look at how transparent people are. There are knife companies and guitar part companies that I won't buy from because I can't tell where their stuff is made from, which tells me not that I care where it's made, but they're trying to intentionally hide it so that they can perceive a particular level of quality or perceive a particular image, create this perception about themselves by withholding information. And I don't like that. That's why I want to be 100% transparent about this stuff. I think it's super important. That's more important to me than where it's actually made. Now, if there's a thing on the website and it's like, this is made in China and this part is made in, there's a new knife that just came out that is, the blade is made in the United States. The steel's made in the United States, but then it's ground in Italy, and then it comes back to the United States and it's assembled here. But they tell you that. And the reason it's important is because that brand has a very, very, very strong reputation of American-made stuff that is real expensive. So for them to have the blades ground in Italy, they are being transparent about that, and they're telling you that. I like the fact people were talking about GravTech. Some of the stuff's made here, it's designed here, it's done here. I love that. I think that's really cool. Some of the stuff goes without saying. Like, let's say we got JHS, we got Keeley. Those guys they're building pedals right here in the United States. We know the semiconductors. We know where they come from. We just know because they all have to come from other places. They can't come from here. Batteries cannot come from the United States, more or less. There's some stuff that's just controlled by other countries that there's nothing we can do about it. So we're kind of stuck. So, it's fine. I get it. But at least tell us so that we as consumers can make a choice. I think it's really important to do that. And I just want to make sure that people know that we're not trying to hide anything around here. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to look into all that. Because on, 4th of July week, everybody's being super red, white, and blue. And I'm like, wait a minute. I can't even put that on my box, I don't think. And I went and did a bunch of research about it. And I'm like, no, I want to talk about this. I think it's super important. Like, and I don't feel bad about it because I know I can't get magnets made in the United States. I know I can't. I gotta get them where I gotta get them, right? And we don't shop for price. I don't shop for price on magnets. We shop for the quality that we want. We could get them cheaper, but we don't. We get what we want, and we get the sizes we want. We get the strengths we want. We get all the quality that we want. And if I don't like them, I've changed vendors before, But the thing is even in China, there's only like 4 or 5 places to get good magnets. So, it's all a thing. Super interesting stuff, I just love talking about it because I just like being, to me, this is more about consumer education. And I could be incorrect about some of this stuff because, like I said, I'm not a lawyer. I was only doing research based on how it kind of affects my website so that I could do the right thing for my company. But I hope that it would at least, if you're like, oh, I think he's wrong about this or whatever, take it more of a like, oh, I'm just going to go look for myself for, what do you do for a living? Does it affect you? Do you care? The parts and pieces that you buy for your guitar, if you don't care where they come from, that's okay. But if you do, or you want to put some more research into it and learn for yourself, don't take what I'm saying as law because I'm not a lawyer. But I hope it at least makes people think about it. You know what I mean? Well, honestly, that's kind of all these videos. I don't want anybody to take what I'm saying as law and go do it. Obviously just do what you think is right, for real. Thanks for the super chat, Van Shank. Keeping it ad-free. I appreciate you, sir. Thank you so much for that. Let's see. I like Fender no matter, made in China, Indonesia, Korea. Yeah, and some people are. It's totally cool. The 8 weeks for the Cerakote is regarding when I place the order or when the batch closes. Oh, when you place the order. Yeah. I think we're going to actually send those to production, the first run of them, probably next week. So it shouldn't be a full 8 weeks, but it will be sometime. The other thing we've had a little bit of a slowdown on his pickguard stuff. Just pickguard's kind of going a little streaks like that. So, but everything else is kicking along pretty good. What I hate are taxes. I want to buy a guitar from every country. Yeah. Well, yeah. And you know what? Honestly, to tell you the truth, for those of you that don't live in the United States, that is more of a problem for you, right? Like, I know I was talking to, who was I talking to? Oh, I was talking to Chris at Texas Toast, and he was exporting a guitar to Belgium. And he was like, you would not believe the hoops we have to jump through to send a guitar to Belgium. And I'm like, I don't have to jump through those same hoops. Well, of course, it's a dollar amount thing. And then the tax thing changes. And, in fact, I know the guy who was sending it to because he's a customer and a friend of mine as well. And he had told me in the past, add 25% onto everything you buy. And I'm like, whoa, so maybe it's possible that this stuff may affect you more than us. I don't know. Cause obviously I live here. I grew up here. I've never lived in any other country. So it's hard to know. But it is definitely, I think it does matter. Super interesting stuff. I like that rose color. Yeah, thanks. That's new. Just got that last week. Yeah, and people are talking about the viability of Indonesian guitars, and they're great, man. So many of these guitars are so good. Like, just, it's tough to find a bad guitar, right? When you start getting into, copies for the sake of being copies, like rip-off stuff, some of the Chinese counterfeit stuff, some of the where I sort of turn off, like I just don't even go there with my brain, is when the guitar price, and it's not about inexpensive or accessible, it's about when the guitar price gets to a point where you're like, this makes no sense. Like, there is no possible way anybody is eating 3 meals a day and paying their electric bill and selling a guitar for $250 with humbuckers and a burst top. There's just no way. It just doesn't make sense to me. That's where I just shut off, because I'm just like, something's going on there and I don't like it. And I just shut off. When it's like so unrealistic that it just doesn't make sense, you're like, at least for me, that's where I get with that stuff. But That doesn't mean that a lot of these inexpensive guitars aren't amazing, because they are. Sun Bass, ad-free and honest. My favorite is seeing the Fender Hanchang tuners a high price and then seeing the same unbranded for around $25. Yeah, I don't know where they actually get all that. Thank you for the super chat, by the way. I don't know where they actually get all that stuff, to tell you the truth. It does matter a lot. I want to make a custom neck from Musicraft and taxes. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, because Musicraft is a fantastic neck. We used to use those on some of our guitar builds. And it was really, really, really good. That stuff is really good. Let's see. The 3 pickups that influenced you the most. If you're going to ask a question, put a bunch of question marks in front of it so I don't miss it, because I almost missed this one. The 3 pickups that influenced me the most would be, I'm going to do a video on this actually, just a run-of-the-mill Strat pickup from the 80s. A Seymour Duncan 59 from the 70s. And P90 from a 1956 Les Paul Jr. that belonged to a friend of mine. Those would be the 3. So you figure single coil, humbucker, and P90. Those are probably the 3 actual ones. So when I was a kid, I was probably about, I don't know, 15 or so. My friend had a 70s Ibanez artist, not the hollow body one, but like the solid. It was basically like a double cut Les Paul sort of thing, and it was black, and it had Seymour Duncan 59s in it, and that was the first 59. That was the first Seymour Duncan that I ever played. And growing up with a Strat, then I'm like, oh dang, humbuckers rule. They're like a whole different thing, right? And so that really like impressed on me, and also the difference between a good humbucker and like a not good one. And then the first guitar I ever owned, I'm about to do a video on this in the next few weeks, but the first guitar I ever owned, I still have, and it's a 1985 Stratocaster. And so that was a real heavy influence on me. And then Greg Martin from the Kentucky Headhunters sold his 56 Junior to a buddy of mine, and I got to play that right about the time that I was starting to develop my own P90. So this is way later in life. And I was like, I want my P90s to sound like that. And so that's kind of where that whole thing came from. Super fun to talk about those stories. What is your opinion of noiseless pickups and their evolution? I don't like them. I'm just not a fan. I don't have a reason for them. I mean, if you want a humbucker, get a humbucker. If you want a single coil, get a single coil. Just know that there's a thing. Know that that's part of it. If you really need a single coil, if you really need a single coil sound and you're tired of noise, just wire a humbucker in parallel. That'll get you most of the way there, and you won't have any noise, and it'll sound better than a noiseless single coil. I hate noiseless single coils. Not a fan at all. Let's see. Adam, honesty equals respect. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, we try to keep it pretty real around here. I know that I will tell you one of the things. This is kind of a little inside baseball, but every time we have a video that does really well, which is not that often. So I'm really surprised that in 2 weeks, we've had 2 of them that have done really well. The one on don't adjust your truss rod too much. And the other one on, the one yesterday. What was that? Oh yeah, don't mess with your pickup screws. When they do really well, and we get a lot of views on them. I think there's like 15,000 views in the first 24 hours or something. A lot. For me, for my channel. because we're not that big, right? So anyway, when that happens, we get a lot of new viewership, and the folks that aren't familiar with what we do, there can be a lot of pretty hateful people and pretty like, oh, you're wrong and blah, 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 and all this stuff. And I think about that and I'm like, no, we're just trying to stay real, man. I'm just trying to show you what it is. You can do whatever you want. In fact, I even said it in that video, do whatever you want. And I want to know what you do. There's a lot of people that adjust the screws in their humbuckers. That really surprised me. I don't care about it, but that really surprised me. I didn't know that many people messed with them. I mean, lots of comments. People really mess with their humbucker screws. It's kind of cool. I'm not going to do it. I did do some experimenting. I'm going to make another video about it because I dove into some suggested experiments, and there is some expansion to that conversation. It's a weird thing because as you raise the screw out of the humbucker, the gauge of the magnet gets less. The gauge of the screw gets less, but the string gets more. It's really weird. So, and I know why it is, and I did not think about it when I made that video. So I'm going to make a follow-up video. It's going to kind of be a correction. Because there's a reason why the sound changes. It's still not what everybody thinks, but at the same time, I am wrong about what happens. So we're going to definitely do that video because it's very interesting stuff. Super interesting stuff. I was like really nerding out about it this morning and making some notes on it. The only time I do it is to fit a cover. That's pretty funny. Nah, I don't hate hateful people. I kind of feel bad for them. It's like maybe nobody listens to them or something. Like the people that get in the comments and say stuff, it's like, does your wife not listen to you, or your kids, or your dad, or I don't know, like, do they not pay attention to you? So you have to like just scream into a void and hope someone pays attention? Because I feel bad for that. And I also, people get very angry about things they believe in that are obviously wrong. Some stuff is just wrong, like how you set up a guitar and, do your intonation last. There are some kind of factual things, right? Also, the origin of the humbucker and the fact that it didn't have screws in it. That's not an opinion. That's like, that really happened. It's history. Whether you don't like that or not, well, how come Gibson says, because it's marketing? It's not marketing. Yes, it is actually. This is facts. You can look this stuff up. You can find it the same place I find it. But people get super angry about that stuff. And I think they think that I get angry too. And I don't, because I don't have anything to, somebody was being like, well, what's your argument about blah? I'm like, I don't argue with anybody because I don't have anything to argue. Because look, you can Google this fact and you can look at it. I'm not arguing it. Now, you can argue with me on how much you agree with that fact being true or not, or you can argue with me on, here's what typically happens, is I will say something factual or get it mostly right, because sometimes I just don't know everything. We all don't know everything. So, you just get it mostly right. And the spirit of it is correct, right? Like, maybe I got some detail wrong. And they get super angry. And then they think that I'm arguing with them. And I'm like, you convicted yourself with the statement. I already said what I said. I'm not arguing with anything. I don't have to. Well, you should make a video about blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, you should make the video. And what I always tell people about that is, if you have something to say, make a video and put it on the internet. Don't send me a link. I've done 10 years worth of work so that my stuff is being found by people on the internet. I will not just go to your link and watch your video because you sent it to me in response for mine. If I find it organically after you've done the work, then it's legit. Any recommendations on a noise gate? I don't have any because I don't use them. I do use them on my Kemper, but I mean, that's just the built-in one. Maybe there's other folks in the comments that can help with the noise gate thing because, man, I don't know. I've never used one. I'll tell you why. First of all, I don't like how they feel. I don't like what they do to the thing. I don't use them live either. I haven't been playing live lately, but when I was playing a lot live, I don't really use them. What I will say, though, is mostly the reason I don't use noise gates is because when I'm testing pickups, I need to hear what the whole pickup is doing. I don't use compression. So on our videos and stuff, I never use compression. I never use a noise gate, and I never mess with the EQ off of flat. Now, the EQ in the amp might be to get the tone that I want, but I actually have a default EQ that in a couple of profiles in my Kemper, for example, and on my other amps that I use, to use as a baseline. Because if you go too far off of that baseline, then you don't know what you're testing anymore. So that's one of the reasons I really like using a Kemper, because it makes it easy for me to baseline a couple of different tones. I'm so glad to have one again, man. I love it. Let's see. Maybe you should make a version of the prototype all slug PAF. Way ahead of you, bro. Way ahead of you. I thought of it yesterday, and I was like, I think I have all the stuff. We're going to do it next week. When a person gets angry, they give control of their emotions to someone else. Yep, I agree. Yeah, I agree. Let's see. Somebody's fighting about Glocks. I don't like Glocks. Not a Glock fan. Would you consider making a true Seth Lover prototype with solid color? Yeah. So apparently people want me to do that. I'll do it for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We'll do it. We'll do it next week. I will put a pre-order for that on the website tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. Look at Dylan Talks Tone tomorrow. And stay tuned for that. And I'll put that up there. I have all the stuff. So even though it's not going to look like a pre-order. It's just going to be a normal order. We usually go 2 to 3 weeks, on stuff. But I think next week I'll actually be able to make those because I have all the stuff already. I know what I'm supposed to do. I know what it is. I just haven't done it. So, and we have no hole humbucker covers in stock. It'll be a short run. I'll probably only be able to do like 10 of them real quick. But then after that, if you want more people want them, we'll make more. And they're all going to be nickel. And they're going to be like our DAF, but they're going to be 2 slug and they're 2 row slug, and they're going to be A5s. Yep. Yeah, man, that'll be sweet. That'd be super fun. It'd be super fun. All right. Yeah, well, that sounds awesome. How much fine control can you actually have over the sound output of a pickup, volume, tone, and all that sweet stuff we love when you're actually creating the pickup or changing the pickup or designing the pickup? Lots. You can have a lot. It's not as much, I don't know. It's nuanced, right? Because it's not necessarily about tone. This is an interesting one. It's not always about tone. a lot of times it's about dynamics. That's what I care about. You can get a lot of different tones, and we're talking about tone, we're talking about like frequency response from a tone knob, from an EQ on an amp. You can get a lot, and people will say that, like, well, I just get that from the EQ on my amp. You're right, you can. Yeah, absolutely. The problem is that if the sound is not there to begin with, you can't put it in. Okay, so if there's no highs to begin with, you can't put them in. And people say, well, yes, I can. I just crank it up. No, you're putting noise into the pickup, right? So a lot of people say, well, P90s are noisy. Well, no, not really. What's happening is they can be noisy. They can be really noisy. But let's say it's not very noisy. Let's say it's just a normal Gibson pickup. The problem is that there's no top end there. So now you want to dial in some clarity to that thing. So you go to your EQ and you try to dial in some clarity. The problem is that you bring noise with it. So instead of worrying about the frequencies and all that, to me, I worry about dynamics. I worry about soft, medium, hard, playing, picking hard, picking softly. And, a lot of people give me a hard time for playing the same riffs all the time in all my videos. It's because it's like I'm testing. I'm like literally like, okay, if it does this with this riff, then I know I'm good. If it doesn't do this and I'm missing something, then I need to go back there and fix it. And that's to me, that's what I do. I don't believe in making, this is a country pickup and this is a rock pickup and this is a jazz pickup and this is no. You can make a pickup that does everything. It's super easy. But can you make a pickup that does everything that doesn't lose anything in any of those areas? That's the trick. And it's dynamics more than tone. If I can give you good dynamics with your pickup, then you can put whatever tone you want in it without introducing noise, without introducing muddiness, without introducing anything like that. So that's what I care about. I care more about dynamics than anything. Yep. Awesome. Well, you guys, this has been fun. Keep an eye on the website. Keep an eye on the website tomorrow, and we will put that original pickup. I don't know what I'm going to call that thing. I was actually trying to think about a name for it yesterday. Yeah, we'll throw that up on the website. I think you guys will dig it. I'm going to make it tomorrow. Maybe we'll put it in the Somnium so you can hear a difference between a regular DAF and that one. In case it's something that you're interested in, and we'll make it happen. We will see you. I don't know. Sometime later this week, I guess.